Hello guys, Uncle Vasil here with yet another fascinating history topic. Today we're going to talk about the French Foreign Legion, one of the world's most powerful armies that fought in multiple wars. I hope you guys enjoy. Let's get started. On March 9th, 1831, King Louis-Philippe signed a royal decree creating a new military unit composed entirely of foreign volunteers. Intended to support France's ongoing conquest of Algeria, launched in 1830. The Legion also served to absorb the wave of foreign refugees who had entered France after the July Revolution and who were no longer permitted to enlist in the regular army. Designed for deployment exclusively outside France's borders, the Legion kept these potentially volatile elements away from domestic politics while continuing a long French tradition of foreign regiments, Swiss, German, and others, that had served the nation for centuries. The Legion did not remain in France for long. By 1832, it had been dispatched on its first major operation, reinforcing France's campaign to conquer Algeria. France urgently needed additional troops to secure its foothold, and the Legion, created specifically for overseas service, was the ideal force to send. Their arrival in Algeria was brutal. Extreme heat and widespread disease claimed more lives than enemy fire, while local resistance fighters launched constant ambushes that pushed the Legion's discipline to its limits. The unforgiving terrain and relentless long marches quickly became part of its identity, and this baptism by fire forged the Legion's early reputation for resilience and endurance. Why does this moment matter? The 1832 deployment established Algeria as the Legion's first long-term base, defined its future role in France's colonial campaigns, laid the groundwork for its famous march or die ethos. From this point forward, the French Foreign Legion became the unit France relied on for its toughest, most distant, and most dangerous missions. Throughout the 19th century, the French Foreign Legion became one of France's most relied upon expeditionary forces, fighting across a vast range of colonial and international campaigns. Its longest early commitment was the French conquest of Algeria, beginning in the 1830s and lasting for decades, followed by its deployment to Spain during the First Carlist War to support the liberal government against Carlist forces. In the 1850s, the Legion fought alongside French and British troops in the Crimean War, and soon after took part in France's intervention in Mexico, with a legendary 1863 Battle of Cameroon cemented its reputation for unwavering courage. The Legion also played a major role in France's expansion into Indochina, contributing to the conquest of Vietnam in the late 1800s and participated in the 1866 Korean Campaign, a punitive expedition aimed at forcing open Korean trade. It returned to European battlefields during the Franco-Prussian War of 1870–71, then fought in the Sino-French War of the 1880s in Tonkin in southern China. As France pushed deeper into Africa, the Legion supported the Franco-Daimian War in the 1890s and later helped secure French control over Madagascar. These campaigns forged the Legion's identity, a unit known for extreme toughness, capable of operating in deserts, jungles, mountains, and frozen terrain, a multinational brotherhood of volunteers, and a force defined by sacrifice and endurance. The 19th century also gave birth to the Legion's enduring legend. Cameroon became the symbol of absolute loyalty. Algeria became its spiritual home, and Indochina introduced it to the jungle warfare that would shape its future. By 1900, the Legion had evolved into France's most dependable force for missions that were too dangerous, too distant, or too politically sensitive for regular troops. During the 19th century, the French Foreign Legion did far more than fight in distant colonies. It also served in two of Europe's major conflicts, the Crimean War and the Franco-Prussian War, experiences that helped define its reputation as a tough, dependable force capable of operating well beyond colonial frontiers. In the Crimean War, 1853 to 1856, fought between Russia and an alliance of France, Britain, the Ottoman Empire, and Sardinia, the Legion prepared 5 battalions for the campaign and first assembled on the Gallipoli Peninsula, where a devastating cholera outbreak killed more than 200 men before they even reached the battlefield. After reorganizing into a battalion de Marque and joining General Canterbert's disease-stricken division. They landed in Crimea in September 1854 and endured brutal cold, illness, and siege warfare that tested their endurance and reinforced their growing reputation for resilience. The Legion later fought in the Franco-Prussian War, 1870 to 1871, a major clash between France and the rising Prussian-German coalition, taking part in defensive actions as France struggled against a modern, well-organized enemy. With the regular army stretched thin, many legionnaires were deployed to protect French territory during one of the nation's greatest crises, a conflict that ended in France's defeat, the fall of Napoleon III, and the unification of Germany. Yet the Legion's discipline and reliability remained evident throughout the chaos. Together, these wars demonstrated the Legion's operational versatility, its dependability under extreme pressure, and its integration into France's core military efforts, helping cement its identity as a unit the nation could rely on anywhere, whether at home or abroad. When World War I erupted in 1914, the French Foreign Legion was pulled from its traditional role in distant colonies and thrust onto the Western Front, one of the most lethal battlefields in history, as France mobilized every available unit for the massive conflict. Thousands of foreign residents in France volunteered to fight Germany, and because many could not legally join regular French units, they were directed into the Legion, creating a unique wartime force made up of both seasoned long-term legionnaires and idealistic volunteers who enlisted specifically to defend France. The Legion went on to fight in some of the war's most brutal engagements, including the Battle of the Marne, the Battle of the Somme, and the disastrous Nivelle Offensive, suffering enormous casualties as entire companies were destroyed by trench assaults, artillery barges, and gas attacks. Despite these losses, legionnaires continued to step forward for dangerous missions, reinforcing their reputation for toughness, loyalty, and unbreakable resolve. World War I ultimately transformed the Legion, proving it could operate not only in colonial campaigns, but in the largest industrial war the world had ever seen, expanding its international identity as volunteers from dozens of nations joined the fight, and strengthening its enduring mythos of sacrifice and discipline. By the war's end, the Legion had secured a permanent place within France's frontline military structure as a core combat force rather than merely an overseas unit. When World War II erupted, the French Foreign Legion shifted from a largely colonial force into a truly global combat unit, fighting across multiple continents and under rapidly changing political authorities. Between 1939 and 1945, legionnaires served in Europe, North Africa, the Middle East, and Asia, marking the war as one of the most geographically expansive periods in Legion history. After France's collapse in 1940, the Legion split between units loyal to Vichy France, operating in North Africa and the Levant, and others who joined Charles de Gaulle's Free French forces, creating one of the most complex and divided chapters in its history, as legionnaires sometimes found themselves on opposing sides of the same conflict. Throughout the war, the Legion fought in Norway, defended France during the 1940 invasion, battled across Morocco, Tunisia, and Libya, took part in the Syria, Lebanon campaign, fought in Italy with Free French units, advanced through mainland Europe during the liberation of France and the push into Germany, and continued operations in Indochina's jungles. This unprecedented global deployment highlighted the Legion's value as France's only fully professional force at the war's outset, composed almost entirely of foreign volunteers with experience in harsh climates and capable of rapid deployment to collapsing fronts. World War II ultimately reshaped the Legion, expanding its global footprint, forcing it to navigate political fragmentation between Vichy and Free French commands and inflicting heavy casualties, especially in North Africa and Europe. By 1945, the Legion had fought from the Arctic Circle to the Sahara Desert to the jungles of Southeast Asia, emerging with a hardened reputation as a versatile, battle-tested, multinational force unmatched in its reach and resilience. When the First Indochina War broke out in 1946, the French Foreign Legion quickly became one of the principal combat forces in France's attempt to retain control over its colonies in Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. The conflict, fought between French Union forces and the Viet Minh, lasted until 1954, and the Legion was engaged from the opening clashes to the final defeat. Acting as the spearhead of France's expeditionary effort, legionnaires were deployed throughout Tonkin, Annam, Cochinchina, Laos, and Cambodia, operating in dense jungles, rugged mountains, river deltas, and isolated outposts. Their importance stemmed from the fact that, in the aftermath of World War II, the Legion was one of the few fully professional and battle-hardened units France could rely on. The fighting was relentless. Legionnaires endured ambushes, guerrilla tactics, monsoon weather, disease, and a determined enemy, fighting for independence. Many of the war's fiercest engagements took place in northern Vietnam, where the Viet Minh concentrated their strength. The Legion participated in major operations throughout the conflict, culminating in the 1954 Battle of Dien Bien Phu, the decisive confrontation that ended French rule in Indochina. Several Legion battalions were annihilated in the siege, and their stand became one of the most dramatic and tragic episodes in Legion history. By the war's end, the Legion had suffered staggering losses, but had also reinforced its reputation as a tough, loyal, and indispensable arm of the French military. The First Indochina War profoundly reshaped the Legion and set the stage for the next major conflict it would face, the Algerian War. The French Foreign Legion played a central and highly visible role in the Algerian War, the violent struggle between France and the FLN from 1954 to 1962 that ultimately led to Algeria's independence and the collapse of France's Fourth Republic. Over 1 million French soldiers served in the conflict, but the Legion stood out as a fully professional, battle-hardened force composed largely of foreign volunteers, many of them veterans of World War II, with deep experience in counterinsurgency and harsh terrain. Legion units fought across the rugged interior of Algeria, conducting mountain warfare, counter-guerrilla operations, border security along the Tunisian and Moroccan frontiers, and rapid reaction missions that increasingly relied on helicopters, a cutting-edge tactic at the time. Elite formations such as the 1-REP and 2-EREP became known for their aggressive, high-tempo operations, while the Legion itself remained a multinational force, nearly half German at the war's outset, yet unified under the motto Legio Patria Nostra. As the conflict dragged on, parts of the French army, including some Legion elements, grew sympathetic to the OAS, culminating in the failed 1961 general's putsch and the subsequent dissolution of the 1-REP. Throughout the war, legionnaires endured constant ambushes, bombings, and close-quarters fighting, placing them at the center of both the conflict's fiercest battles and its most controversial actions. By the war's end, France withdrew, Algeria gained independence, and the Legion relocated its historic base from Sidi Bel Abbès to mainland France, emerging permanently reshaped, politically, culturally, and operationally by the conflict. When Algeria gained independence in 1962, the French Foreign Legion underwent one of the most profound upheavals in its history, as the loss of Sidi Bel Abbès, its headquarters, training hub, and cultural heart since the 1840s, forced France to withdraw the Legion from Algerian soil and rebuild it entirely within mainland France. The historic base was closed, the command structure uprooted, and the Legion relocated to Aubagny, near Marseille, which became its new permanent home. In the process, regiments were dissolved, merged, or reassigned to fit France's post-colonial military needs. The elite 1-REP, already disbanded after the failed 1961 general's putsch, was not revived, while other airborne and infantry units were reorganized into modernized formations. This shift marked a major cultural turning point, pushing the Legion to redefine itself without the colonial framework that had shaped its missions for over a century and transforming it into a force focused on rapid deployment, overseas interventions, and international operations. Despite the disruption, the Legion emerged stronger, consolidating its structure, updating its training and doctrine, and preparing for the global missions, from Africa to the Middle East to peacekeeping operations, that would define its role in the decades that followed. In the 21st century, The French Foreign Legion has become one of the world's most active expeditionary forces, deploying across multiple continents for missions ranging from counterterrorism to peacekeeping and humanitarian relief. With more than 9,600 personnel from roughly 150 nationalities forming a core element of France's rapid reaction capability. Its modern operations span Africa, the Middle East, Europe, and the Pacific, reflecting both France's global commitments and the Legion's reputation for toughness and adaptability. In the Sahel, Legionnaires conduct counterterrorism operations in Mali, Niger, and Chad through desert warfare and long-range patrols. In the Middle East, they support stabilization and security missions alongside coalition partners. In Europe, they contribute to NATO training and rapid deployment exercises. And across the Pacific and Indian Ocean regions, they protect French overseas territories through security patrols, disaster response, and joint operations. The Legion also plays a major role in peacekeeping and humanitarian efforts worldwide, demonstrating a level of versatility few military units can match. Built for mobility, with airborne, armored cavalry, engineering, and infantry regiments capable of deploying rapidly into deserts, jungles, mountains, or urban conflict zones, the modern Legion reflects its transformation from a colonial force into a multinational, professional arm of France's military, ready to respond wherever French or Allied interests demand. Since its founding in 1831, the French Foreign Legion has been defined by two qualities that distinguish it from nearly every other military force in the world: uncompromising discipline and a uniquely multinational composition, traits that form the core of how the Legion operates and preserves its mystique. Its famously strict discipline exists to forge cohesion among recruits arriving from dozens of countries, speaking different languages and carrying vastly different life experiences. Training is deliberately intense, built on obedience, endurance, unity, and a rigid internal culture that demands absolute loyalty and transforms strangers into a single, reliable fighting force capable of operating in extreme conditions. Equally defining is the Legion's global makeup, with volunteers from Europe, Africa, Asia, Latin America, and beyond, often more than 150 nationalities at once. Many seeking a fresh start or belonging, others bringing prior military experience, all adopting a new identity under the motto Legio Patria Nostra. The Legion is our homeland, which dissolves national differences and creates a powerful internal bond. This fusion of strict discipline and worldwide diversity gives the Legion its distinctive character, molding men from every corner of the globe into a unified, highly effective unit and sustaining its reputation for toughness, loyalty, and elite performance for nearly 2 centuries. This sums it up, people. If you're thinking of joining the Legion, please make sure to be in excellent health and physical shape, otherwise you might fail. Please like, share, and subscribe for more from Uncle Vasil. Until next time, big bosses.